Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Yesterday I promised I would get you more than the preliminary details on this skinny bill, and today I have additional details for you on what's going into the Senate's skinny bill. First things first, we're expecting a vote on this bill on Thursday. That's tomorrow. That would be September 10th. That's also my dad's birthday. Now, on the bill, I've got more details as well on some of the pieces of the bill and what we can expect going forward. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the flow chart. Everything in yellow is going to be a sort of new revision or something that we hadn't expected or talked about previously, and everything in blue or different colors, stuff we've already either talked about. So that's going to help streamline what we've got to look at. Remember to get life insurance within as little as 5 minutes and get one free stock worth up to $1,600 when you deposit $100 with the stock trading platform linked below. Check out those links next to the coupon code for the courses. Okay, let's get started. Here we go. So we've got some usual quotes here. Chuck Schumer, this bill will not pass. Go back to the drawing board. Pelosi and I will meet you halfway. This is just the usual kind of bickering back and forth we're seeing. McConnell responds with, the American people don't need to be arguing about basically what's perfect. Let's just do something. Okay, you can kind of see both sides here a little bit, even though I think they're both insane, both sides. On filibustering and voting, yesterday I did make a small mistake. I mentioned that there were 51 Republicans. I screwed that up, my fault. There are actually 53 Republicans in the Senate. I had the 2 independents misplaced. There are 45 Democrats and 2 independents, so my fault. That means 2 Republicans can vote no, and this bill will still pass. They need 51 votes to pass this bill, and they need 60 votes to get over filibuster delays, which is basically when Democrats just take forever to talk about it, and then the bill never ends up going anywhere. All right, the cost for this bill is currently being pegged at $300 billion per the Wall Street Journal. That's because of the massive offsets that they're using and the clawbacks that they're doing to get money from other sources. So they're reallocating money from the CARES Act, they're reallocating and restricting money from the Fed, or the Fed appropriated money for emergency lending, and that's actually making the skinny bill even smaller than expected. Because we heard the HEALS Act, which didn't really heal anything. We heard the HEALS Act was going to be a $1 trillion deal. We know that Trump is willing to sign a $1.3 trillion deal, but no more than a $2 trillion deal. And now here we are at a $300 billion deal to try to get Republicans on board. Crazy. Anyway, this is something that was really interesting on the unemployment. The way the text actually reads is that the unemployment boost would go back to the expiration, the previous expiration of around July 26th, 25th, right around there. So if you got the FEMA boost and this bill passes and you're on unemployment, you would actually be owed retroactive pay for by $300 per week for August and September as well, even if you got the FEMA boost during those times. So you'd actually get sort of this double up of the FEMA boost, where you're getting $300 to $400 per week for about 5 weeks in August and the first week of September, and this $300 per week. So I thought that was pretty interesting. On the schools, I promised you more details on the schools, so you can always pause and look on screen here to get more of the details, so that way I'm not reiterating everything. I respect your time, want to keep it short. We've mentioned the 2/3 of the money being allocated for schools actually only goes to the schools if they reopen. But I got a little bit more information on the tax credits for school of choice. So this is actually Ted Cruz's plan, and they're incorporating Ted Cruz's plan for school choice in this. This applies to K through 12 schools, elementary and secondary schools is the way they put it. You have to reside in the state of that school, which makes sense. And you can provide donations or money to public schools and still get that tax credit. But this is really designed, because, well, public schools are free, this is really designed for people who want to send their children, in my opinion, to private schools or charter schools, and then they pay tuition over there. As long as that school would give you some sort of high school diploma, it appears it would qualify for you to get a 100% tax credit. So it's basically like you're paying $10,000, let's say, for tuition per year per student, and then you're getting that $10,000 back. Remember, yesterday I did mention as well that this would be limited to 10% of, I believe, your adjusted gross income. The text just says gross income, but usually that refers to the adjusted gross income line on your tax return. And then this tax credit, if this passes, would actually be for 2 years. So it would be for 2020 and 2021. Something to keep in mind. Okay, then I added a little bit here, more detail. I dug up the detail here on the liability protections. One of the things that I want to mention here that's new is they mentioned this, that if you get COVID during or at your workplace, or you allege that you got it from your workplace, you are required to provide a list of every place you went and every person you interacted with, both inside and outside of your home during the prior 14 days of symptoms onset. So that was very interesting to me. That almost seems like another potential loophole where employers say, oh, well, you say you got sick at work, but hey, you didn't give us a detailed list, or, we saw you over here and you didn't tell us about that, or whatever. It's just basically these liability protections make it very difficult for you to win a COVID lawsuit. In fact, you can sort of pause on some of these requirements, like, gross negligence and willful misconduct. And of course, this is just the proposed bill right now, so this could always change. But the way I read this is the only way you can actually win a COVID lawsuit is if you provide clear and convincing evidence that the defendant, the person you're suing, was not making reasonable efforts, which is really broad, in light of circumstances to comply with the applicable government standards and guidance in effect at the time. At the time is like so crazy, because if you got COVID in March, there were no standards in effect. So it's basically like, can't sue, So a lot of holes in this. Basically, I think giving COVID immunity is what this really is. And then on top of reasonable efforts here, the defendant would have to engage in gross negligence or willful misconduct. Again, you can always pause your screen if you want to read some more of these. I wrote down some more potential loopholes here. The punitive damages. Even if you win a lawsuit, you can't actually win more damages than the economic loss you actually incurred twice. That's like the max you could get. So you'd have to prove like, oh, well, I was out of work for 10 weeks and I usually make $2,000 a week. Okay, well, that's $20,000 in economic losses. Okay, but then on top of that, I want punitive damages. Okay, you get a max of 40 grand. So that's not even going to cover litigation expenses. I mean, unless they have a provision that says litigation expenses would be covered by the loser. But in America, we have, which is commonly thought, but in America, we have something called the American rule, which is everybody pays their own attorney fees unless there's a contract in place that says loser pays. Crazy world we're in. On the PPP, I thought it was neat that this now does include looting, sanitation, ventilators. I think it's a really good idea, by the way, for us, and businesses especially should have air purifiers. In fact, if you go to, I think it's metkevin.com/air or metkevin.com/purify, I'll link it down below. Try both of those. And that'll link you to an air purifier that I have two of. I've got one sitting right here, and I've got another one in the family room. And it's got these, what are they called? Those UV bulbs as well, and the filter's like this big. The thing's like this industrial HEPA. And these HEPA filters, I think, are a really good idea for eliminating the potential for sort of that COVID cloud, which they say one of the reasons people get so sick indoors, especially, if they're singing in church or they're in closed spaces, is because of basically this buildup of a COVID cloud in the air that obviously is invisible and you can't smell. And to me, I kind of think of that almost like having a gas leak. You know how they add odor to gas so you actually know, oh, there's a gas leak? Well, this kind of like that. It fills up the air. And then the more you are in this COVID cloud, the more likely you are to actually catch a COVID. I think that's why a lot of people think, oh, it's harder to catch it outside. And that makes sense. And that's why I think these HEPA filters, it's actually nice to see that they're including this in the PPP now. So I think that's really, really good. So if you're a business owner, I think that's a good thing to have for a business, some sort of industrial HEPA filter. Then for the PPP, they also include streamlined forgiveness and easier requirements for actually getting forgiveness depending on the loan that you have. You still are required to document this in case you get audited, but always document things for 3 years is generally the rule. Anyway, then we've got money for the post office. We talked about that yesterday. No real changes here. We talked about the earth mining boosts, the rare earth mining boosts, the materials, $20 billion for agriculture, $500 million for fish beneficiaries. And then, of course, the usual, no mention of forbearance checks, deferments, heroes, hazard pay, rental assistance. Eviction protections, formal version of those. Obviously, we have eviction protections that were put into place by the CDC. But, it's nice to have Congress give us something more formal and more structured and rigid, along with ideally some rental assistance, which obviously this isn't providing. Although we would expect something like that in the future. And then, of course, no stimulus checks. So not really the best bill. It's very, very, very limited. And again, Republicans believe that they can add on to this. But there were definitely some interesting new add-ons that I discovered just over the last 24 hours of researching this bill here that I wanted to share with you. And then, of course, you could always pause on any of those still frames to get some more details specifically. So there you have some more details in this bill. Check out those courses down below on making money from home, making YouTube videos, real estate investing, and stock investing. And folks, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.